Most men want more clarity, more respect, more control over their lives, but few know how to get it. Welcome to the Bro Coach Podcast with Dennis Procopio, the founder of Man Up Life Coaching and the man behind thousands of transformed lives. Not red pill, not therapy, just the evolved man's blueprint for strength, presence, and purpose.
Hey guys, welcome to the Bro Coach. I am the Bro Coach, Dennis Procopio, and we are about to record season 1, episode 3. Now, if you checked out our first two recordings, you'll have heard me ask questions about how you as a man can deal with the changing landscape, which has a lot of guys feeling like masculinity is under attack, and how we thread the needle to create healthy masculinity without losing the quintessential things that make us men. This episode is going to go into raising your boys. How do you show up as a father and a role model for younger men in this climate? So follow me on my thought experiment here into raising your boys in a climate under which masculinity is under attack. So the first question becomes, what does healthy masculinity look like for boys today? Now, in previous sessions here, in previous recordings, we've talked about how we're faced with something new, which is that the shut up, swallow your feelings, just be a man and perform, protect, provide is really no longer what we're expected to do. We have women who are earning as much, if not more, than men. We're in a technical landscape which deprecates our value as people who can pick up heavy things and put them back down, or kill the animal, skin it, and eat it without feeling bad for it, etc. Now we're being asked to be more gentle, not be able in a china cabinet, to be empathetic. And how are boys seeing these changes in our modeling and our confusion as we adapt to these new roles? How is this going to work for them? What are they going to learn is healthy? So we're going to get into that in this episode. But if I just had to say high level, what is healthy right now in terms of masculinity for a boy? Healthy is to understand what a man is, to understand that masculinity is kind of a spectrum. And don't be afraid when I say that masculinity is a spectrum, which means that different individual men bring different individual things to the collective masculinity model. And above all else, love, believe it or not, and authenticity are still the number one imitable characteristics that men can learn from us as fathers, uncles, older brothers, and teachers, etc. Okay, so if you're a dad, the question becomes, how do I prepare my sons for a culture that is changing rapidly, that's different than what I'm historically used to? In other words, back in the old days, it's here's the firewood, you're supposed to chop it. Girls are made of sugar and spice and everything nice. Boys are made of, snakes and snails and puppy dog tails. It was really easy to understand what the masculine role was. So as a dad, what skills are you giving your boy to help him to, not only survive, but thrive in this changing landscape? There's a part of me that wants to take a sort of a negative tack and say, masculinity is under attack. They're trying to emasculate us. They're trying to feminize us. But instead, I'm going to say that and this is a real weird thing to say, don't get scared when I say it, but everyone has a masculine element and everyone has a feminine element. The reality is that when we nurture leaning into a feminine element, when we solve problems with our engineer brain, we're leaning into a masculine element. There are some female scientists who lean into their masculine element, and there are some male nurses who lean into their feminine, or dads who lean into their feminine element. I want to get rid of the idea that feminine or masculine are bad words. The problem becomes when you go too far to either extreme. That's when we start to have imbalance. So I think our job is to come, entropy is sort of pulling us apart. And I think that as a dad, what you need to do is to teach your boys to be physically strong. I think exercise is important. To be mentally under control by doing something meditative, regardless of what that is. Cut the grass, mop a floor, whatever, get off of your devices, which train us to be perpetually distracted. Go fishing, build a doghouse, anything that requires meditation and working through problems without becoming reactive. Another thing that I think that men need to train their dads to do, or excuse me, their kids to do, their sons to do in particular, is to recognize that women talk more. I mean, it's documented. Women say about 30,000 words a day compared to men's 7,000. So women talk more because women use talking to express their emotions. Men go in their little cave and build a doghouse, go fishing, etc., until they've solved their problems on a back burner and they feel less threatened. It's called self-regulation. As a boy, becoming a man, you need to learn that when she needs to talk, let her and don't judge her. As a man, you need to learn that when you're upset, it's okay to retreat and go do something quiet and meditative. And that when you do that, you're not being toxic or avoidant or whatever. I could make a 2-hour segment just on this piece because arguably it's what's at the root of the life coaching that I've been doing for men over the past years. It's self-mastery by centering in your healthy masculinity and recognizing that a lot of the things that you thought of as masculine and macho are really just your inner bitch on steroids. That's not actually masculinity. Consider guys like, consider UFC fighters that can kick your ass, but they're also kind of uncool, because they obviously have temper tantrums when things don't go their way. Case in point, Conor McGregor, versus somebody who's calm, cool, and collected. Case in point, Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? So, who, by the way, had a great dad. So here's how I want to land this. As a father with the responsibility of raising a son in these times, I think that the way that you show him healthy masculinity is, one, model it by getting your own shit together. And then two, understand that everything that makes the good old fashioned, loving, strong and silent type dad a good dad, nothing's changed. That's still the model. So as I said earlier, we were raised with this idea that girls were pretty and boys were smart, girls were lovely and boys were gross. Girls play with dolls and boys play with trucks. So we're in a different time now where it's really not working to try to push those old gender stereotypes, and parents are confused what to do with that. They don't want to be regressive, and in doing so, set their kids up for failure if everybody else isn't reading from the same play card. But at the same time, um, it challenges their ideas of what boys and girls and men and women are if they go too far in another direction. Like a guy can be uncomfortable watching his son dress up as a princess, or a guy can be uncomfortable watching uh, his daughter say that she wants to cut her hair short and wear pants. I mean, we've been through this already culturally, but now it's just going to the complete opposite extremes. So the question just becomes, what can you do as a parent to provide guidelines that um, set your kids up for success without completely diluting what you consider to be appropriate masculinity and femininity role models? And then, of course, there's a third thing, which is they're going to be going to school with people who are using language like gender fluidity and pronouns. And how do you set them up to have conversations with those people without being socially ostracized, or creating an us them war that protects your own insecurities? So the answer really, and I know that this sounds hyper simplistic, and if we were to ever work together in a coaching environment, I would probably refine my message a little bit. But simply, the first thing we teach kids is that we love each other. That's it. The moment we lose love, we lose the point. I was raised in an environment where I was taught that gay people are people of the same sex, of the same gender, who love each other. As a result, I grew up to be a guy who says if God doesn't agree with gay relationships, then it's God's job to judge his own creation and ask himself, why did I make these people if I don't agree with what I've made? Am I going back on my idea here? Should I not have made the platypus? So it's the same thing. You figure out for yourself what you believe are appropriate roles for kids to play in the house based on your fundamental beliefs, but you also teach them to maintain healthy, rational conversations with people who operate differently. And you teach them that whether you agree or disagree, you still love that person. It is the moment you turn love into hate that you fundamentally have a problem. So that's, like I said, that's super abstract, but that's the message I want to leave you with for now until I do another one of these that goes way deeper into this idea.
Hey man, stop spinning your wheels. If you're serious about leveling up your career, your relationships, and your mindset, it's time to man up. At Man Up Life Coaching, we cut the excuses and build discipline, confidence, and purpose. Book your free strategy session now at manuplifecoaching.com/application. Don't fill it out if you're not ready to grind, but if you are, this call could change your life. Man Up Life Coaching, elite life coaching for men by men.
So unsurprisingly, because my target demographic is men, I tend to get a lot of guys who are conservative left to pretty far right. And the social imposition of new standards makes them feel extremely threatened. So an example is, I think we've seen the pendulum swing very far left in the past decade, and the EQ plus voices in particular introduced ideas that young people became very interested in, and hyper liberal parents supported, and guys in the middle to guys on the right are absolutely not okay with some of the messaging. Case in point, you'll hear guys saying, I'm not teaching my son that some women have penises and some men have vaginas. That's just not language I'm going to use in my house. But other men who feel that way feel societal pressure to suppress their what's their truth and to say, yeah, sure, whatever. Okay, fine. This is what we teach kids now, and they're doing it to the detriment of their own belief system and their own authenticity. This is not rage bait. I am not interested in starting a war with anyone. I am only saying that if you genuinely, America is a place built on the philosophy that if you have certain religious beliefs or if you have beliefs about the way a lifestyle can and should go, you get your plot of land, you put a fence around it, and you do your thing, and you have the liberty to do that as long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of the next person. So I think it's a good time to remember that, because trying to indoctrinate the world with far right values or far left values is this communism that everybody is afraid of. So I think what we need to do is get in the middle, get a little closer to the middle anyway, and take a staunch position there and say, I'm willing to negotiate until the cows come home, but I am not going to raise my kids in a way that is inauthentic. So the game is, you can be a parent who raises your kids to stick to your rule set, but you have to make sure that in doing so, you're not hurting someone else. And I think the real conversations are about the ways in which you don't realize you're hurting someone else. I'll just case in point, my kid is autistic and he has dwarfism. I don't care if you were raised with the word midget, you do not say that around my son. It is the M word. It is inoffensive. I think that's a place where you can concede. That's just an example. So to wrap this little piece up, how do we keep from going too far in the direction of diluting masculinity or femininity roles that we were raised with and that we think are appropriate? As always, love, empathy, conversation, and conviction in your own beliefs, but flexibility where those beliefs might harm someone else. So let's step outside of the nuclear family and let's look at the community at large. I've had guys ask, hey, I have values that we, in our dynamic, my wife and I, we're going to have kids, and we have a pretty good understanding of how we're going to raise our kids. But when I hang out with my family, they have different values, and I'm wondering, should we just not interact with them? Should we make a point to argue to death the difference between their rules and our rules? At the heart of this is the question, how can I influence other children, but boys in particular, since that's my target demographic? Let me roll back on that. Boys and girls. I think, because I think that women learn as much about what they're looking for in a husband or a male partner by watching men as anything. So how do I influence? How do I influence other kids if I'm not their parent or a direct, as a role model, even as a coach, as a teacher, whatever? How do I influence other kids, other boys? I think the answer to that is kind of circling back to what I've said a bunch of times already. Number one, a man needs a code. So understand what your code is. Two, don't be so inflexible that you're not willing to have a reasonable conversation with someone who disagrees with you, because then you're just going to have a Hatfield McCoy situation, and that doesn't really traditionally work. Be willing to negotiate the negotiable points and understand which points of yours are non-negotiable. Have a non-violent solution for what to do when non-negotiable points remain non-negotiable and you're not aligned, and model that process. Be the thing that you want other kids to be, which is fair, loving, authentic, committed to your values, willing to negotiate, willing to discuss. I've had more people convert to religions, for example, not because somebody knocked on their door with a pamphlet, but because they saw the quality of their lifestyle and said, what are you doing that other people aren't doing? And they're like, oh, we're, Church of the Latter-day Saints, or, we're we're non-denominational Christians, or we're religious Jews, or we're Muslim, or we're a family who doesn't necessarily believe in a legalistic spiritual doctrine, but we have a set of values that people should be really good to each other. And it's seeing the positive and the love and the peace in that household and in that larger community that makes other people say, I want what they have. So start by modeling. That's my answer. So somebody asked me recently, hey, Dennis, I want to kind of turn the camera around and focus it on you as a father for a second rather than as a mouthpiece. What's your deal with your own son? What are you teaching him? I guess I'll get a little bit vulnerable here and say that my son, Bennett, who turned 15 this year in 2025, is has moderate, or not has, is autistic. Level 3, what you would historically say was a moderate to severe diagnosis. So he's got a lot of stuff going on. And he also has dwarfism. So he's genetically anomalous. He doesn't blend. And teaching him what masculinity is challenging for me, because in his school, he's in special needs classes. So he's treated as an exception. And I'm not convinced that he'll ever be able to stand on his own 2 feet in the world and be autonomous and be capable of self-care. So I have to modify my message for my kid, because I didn't get some, Tom Brady or something for a kid. I got this little not garden variety special edition dude. But I have to say, what he's learned about masculinity from our house is daddy is big and strong. And so it makes him want to be, well, maybe not tall and strong, but big and strong. He likes exercise. He likes showing that he can do physical things. He's great in APE. He also sees that dad treats girls and women with a sort of an old school politeness and respect. There's a little bit of chivalry there. And he's starting to learn that if you want to go toe to toe with your buddy and punch each other in the face under the right circumstances, if that's the only way to work things out, then let's get you some gloves and set it up. But with girls, no, sorry, bro, you just don't put your hands on women. That's the end. Why? because that's just how it goes. Look at nature. It's how it goes. That's why. We're especially careful with women when it comes to physicality because we've got a little bit of an advantage. Well, what about the fact that he's short? Doesn't matter. It's just a rule. I just want to make sure you know that that's the game. If my son, what else does my son see? He sees that I love his mother. He sees that his mother at best tolerates dad and maybe loves him back. He sees that mom does do a lot of the cooking, but dad also cooks. He sees that we have a housekeeper and we divide the cleaning. He sees that we both have jobs. So he has the idea that we're both earners. He sees that we're fair in our negotiations with each other, mom and I. And as a general rule, he sees, as I said earlier, he sees a house with love and a man who has a masculine vibe, which is indescribable. You know it when you see it. I've kind of got silverback energy, but who is also a passive sweetheart, again, kind of silverback energy, sort of gentle giant vibes. So I'm teaching my short son to be an emotional gentle giant, but also if you're not happy with your situation, speak up. And if you need help, come get dad or mom or a cop or a teacher, and we will change it using civility, not hostility. So how do I expand this to the average dad? I think it's pretty obvious, man. Raising your son is a second chance at raising your own inner child. Look at where there were mistakes made and do better. In that area, what does that mean? It means show him that love is love, regardless of gender and all this crap. Show him to respect women. Show him to respect everybody. Teach him to respect nature. Teach him to be a hard worker. Teach him to be somebody who's comfortable in his own skin, and validate the shit out of him, because there is nothing more toxic than a man who feels invalidated. And there is nothing healthier than a man who feels validated. Gay or straight, macho or freaking ballet dancer, doesn't matter. Yeah, that's the message. Okay, so you are here with Dennis Procopio, and I am wrapping it up. This wraps Season 1, Episode 3 of The Bro Coach. I am the Bro Coach, and a lot of the ideas that I've shared with you here today about how fathers can do a good job in the lives of not only their sons, but their daughters, establishing role models for what healthy masculinity looks like in changing times. A lot of these ideas are fundamental to what we do in life coaching for men. So, as I've said before, this is high level. Some of the ideas I might have shared today might be something that you don't fully swallow without discussion. And I encourage you to open that discussion. We have social media and links all over the place. Man Up Life Coaching is the name of our organization. We are constantly growing, and we are a community of men who discuss these things constantly. And in the coaching process, you might find yourself coming out better on some of these topics than you did going in. So I encourage you to hit me up. I encourage you to follow me on all social media. And most importantly, come check us out for the next episode, because we're just getting started.